couple of key things that are important in having a 3D tunnel network. First of all, you have to be able to integrate the entrance and exit of the tunnel seamlessly into the fabric of a city. So by having an elevator, sort of a car skate that's on an elevator, you can integrate the entrance and exits to the tunnel network just by using 2 parking spaces. And then the car gets on a skate. There's no speed limit here, so we're designing this to be able to operate at 200 kilometers an hour, about 200 kilometers an hour, or about 130 miles per hour. It was about $1.5 billion. So that was a good outcome.
A good outcome?
Yes.
His share was $180 million, and he bet it all on Tesla and SpaceX. But at the age of 37, he hit rock bottom. His first rockets failed to reach orbit, and an early model Tesla Roadster had quality problems.
I'd like to thank you for leaving crazy person out of the description. I actually went to Russia 3 times to look at buying a refurbished ICBM. That was the best deal. I can tell you it was very weird going there in late 2001, 2002, going to the Russian rocket forces and saying, I'd like to buy 2 of your biggest rockets, but you can keep the nuke. That's a lot more.
Ford Motor Company and a $1 billion investment into self-driving cars. The company was backing Argo AI.
Everybody thought that autonomous vehicles, especially robotaxis, was right around the corner.
At its height, the startup was reportedly valued at $12.4 billion.
Reality struck them on both cheeks. Robotaxis are not just around the corner.
Argo AI failed.
Who gets excited about a technology that's going to revolutionize a market or revolutionize an industry? The old players get scared. In mobility, there was a lot of talk that Tesla was going to, own the world. That Ford and Volkswagen and GM and Toyota were the dinosaurs.
When Tesla's stock soared to all-time highs in 2017, it pushed its market cap past Ford's for the first time. That happened despite Ford having sold nearly 10 times as many cars as Tesla in
Then, as often, the week of Christmas became a time when little boy dreams are answered.
NASA called and told us that we'd won a $1.5 billion contract. And I couldn't even hold the phone. It's like, I just blurted out, I love you guys.
They saved you.
Yeah, they did.
Liftoff of the Falcon 9.
The rockets haven't failed since. His cargo capsule has docked 3 times with the space station.
Capture is confirmed.
And in the California plant, they're fitting seats for what they hope will be eventual manned missions. SpaceX is also testing a rocket that can be reused, softly landing on a column of flame. Another step on a longer journey.
I'd love to have SpaceX be the company that brings humanity to Mars, and I hope I see it while I'm still alive.
He's at SpaceX 3 days a week, 2 days at Tesla.
What is it about you that seems to invite skepticism?
Well, I think it's because we're doing these things that seem unlikely to succeed. And we've been fortunate, and at least thus far they have succeeded. We have the real-world AI. We're the most advanced in real-world AI. So it's kind of weird seeing the arms and legs just separate. We have a whole lab full of arms and legs. Worth bearing in mind that when we did AI Day, this version of Optimus didn't walk at all. So the rate of improvement here, I think, is quite significant. It is walking around, and we have multiple copies, I suppose, of Optimus. I think Tesla brings to the table that others don't have is that we have
Look at the EV market, and if you take Tesla out, we probably have 60, 65, 70% of that market, of the non-Tesla electric vehicle OEMs. So that's a lot. GM, Ford, Stellantis, Porsche, Volkswagen, Nissan, Toyota, Volvo. We keep adding to the list.
And when asked why they don't work with one of the most recognizable brands in the EV industry?
No, they always do they like to do their own stuff. They're a little bit like Apple. And also, I think the industry owes a lot to Tesla. They made electrification sexy.
When I think about the future of EV battery recycling specifically, I see it as an increasingly competitive space, but at the same time there's a bit of a mismatch of maybe more supply and capacity around EV battery recycling than demand, because we're just riding this first wave of electric vehicles who could be on the road for 10 plus years.
I mean,
But just a personal anecdote, like what did you? I don't.
Personally, for you, I would see I get more of that kind of content, yeah, personally. But I'm not going to talk to the rest of for the rest of Twitter.
You see more hate speech personally.
I would say I would see more hateful content in that. I'm not saying anything. I'm saying.
Well, I'm just curious. I'm trying to understand what you mean by hateful content, and I'm asking for specific examples. And you just said that if something is slightly sexist, that's hateful content. Does that mean that it should be banned?
Well, 6 months.
Okay, so then you must have at some point seen that for you hateful content. And I'm asking for one example.
Right.
And you can't give a single one.
And I'm saying...
Then I say, sir, that you don't know what you're talking about.
Really?
Yes, because you can't give me a single example of hateful content, not even one tweet. And yet you claimed that the hateful content was high.
Well...
That's false.
No, what I claimed...
You just lied.
What? No.
The tunneling cost scales with the cross-sectional area. So that's roughly a half order of magnitude improvement right there. Then tunneling machines currently tunnel for half the time, then they stop, and then the rest of the time is putting in reinforcements for the tunnel wall. So if you design the machine instead to do continuous tunneling and reinforcing, that'll give you a factor of 2 improvement. Combine that and it's a factor of 8. Also, these machines are far from being at their power or thermal limit. So you can jack up the power to the machine substantially. I think you can get at least a factor of 2, maybe a factor of 4 or 5 improvement on top of that. So I think there's a fairly straightforward series of steps to get somewhere in excess of an order of magnitude improvement in the cost per mile. Our target actually is we've got a pet snail called Gary. This is from Gary the snail from South Park. SpongeBob SquarePants. So Gary is capable currently he's capable of going 14 times faster than a tunnel boring machine. Okay.
You want to beat Gary?
We want to beat Gary. Yeah. He's not a patient little fellow, and we want that will be victory. Victory is beating the snail.
What's important to Musk is reducing greenhouse gases, which he believes threaten the world. The Tesla will go about 250 miles on a charge, And Musk is building a network of charging stations where the driver pays nothing for a fill-up. He hopes to make the stations largely solar-powered one day.
You can drive for free forever on pure sunlight. That's the message we're trying to convey. So even if there's a zombie apocalypse and the grid breaks down, you'll still be able to charge your car.
So there's a zombie apocalypse warranty.
Yes, exactly.
And if you're running from zombies, it's good to know the Model S won the highest quality rating in the history of Consumer Reports and has the government's highest safety rating. Musk may be changing the car the way Steve Jobs changed the phone.
I sometimes sleep in the office.
Like
In the library.
5 days a week?
No.
3 days a week?
I'm not here 5 days a week. But there's a library that nobody goes to. Doing, I think, reasonably well. I mean, we're seeing some all-time highs in terms of total user time, 8 billion user minutes per day, which is a lot of user minutes. With a small fraction of the original, head count. So, I think we've got a pretty good handle on what makes Twitter work. Also doing it with 2 data centers instead of 3. So we used to have 3 data centers. We shut down one of them, so we were actually roughly two-thirds of the prior compute capability. But we've made so many improvements to the core algorithm. In some cases, we improved the core algorithm by 80%. So the actual CPU usage or computer usage is dramatically less.
How do you describe yourself?
I usually describe myself as an engineer. That's basically what I've been doing since I was a kid. I'm interested in things that change the world or that affect the future in wondrous new technology, where you see it and you're like, wow, how did that even happen? How's that possible?
How is it possible that Elon Musk could launch 2 impossible businesses, SpaceX, a builder of rocket ships, and Tesla, which could be the first successful car company startup in America in 90 years?
How did you figure you were going to start a car company and be successful at it?
Well, I didn't really think Tesla would be successful. I thought we would most likely fail. But I thought that we at least could address the false perception that people had that an electric car had to be ugly and slow and boring like a golf cart.
But you say you didn't expect the company to be successful, then why try?
If something's important enough, you should try, even if the probable outcome is failure.
Only 4 entities have launched a space capsule into orbit and successfully brought it back: the United States, Russia, China, and Elon Musk. This Buck Rogers dream started years ago when he had a nutty idea to fly an experimental greenhouse to Mars, but he couldn't. He discovered that the price of rockets was astronomical, so now he builds his own.
I had so many people try to talk me out of starting a rocket company. It was crazy.
What did they tell you?
One good friend of mine collected a whole series of videos of rockets blowing up and made me watch those. He just didn't want me to lose all my money.
He never did launch that greenhouse, but now Musk is lofting commercial satellites and flying cargo to the space station for NASA at a fraction of the former cost. That terrible year was captured in a documentary called Revenge of the Electric Car. His plant was filled with flawed cars that couldn't be delivered.
Cars we rejected for,
Holy mackerel. Jesus. We have like an army of cars here. Jesus.
I'm looking like we're going to be able to deliver 4 cars to the sales team.
This is frightening. It's really pedal to the metal here. Each month that passes is literally costs us tens of millions of dollars. We need to appreciate that.
To save Tesla, Musk needed millions more from investors. His fortune was gone.
When we'd call people and say, hey, would you like to invest? They'd be angry that we just called. It's like, no, it's not only no, and various expletives. I remember waking up the Sunday before Christmas in 2008 and thinking to myself, man, I never thought the internet is forever. But this is a mere taste. It was like I said, electric cars were considered extremely impossible and stupid. You're a fraud. Okay, you can drive that fraud. And then now, things have changed. 'Cause, 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 'cause When we created it, we're like, okay, the fundamental historic good of Tesla should be measured by the degree to which we accelerate the advent of sustainable energy and transport. And our goal all along has been to try to get the rest of the car industry to go electric. It's extremely rewarding to see that the rest of the industry is going electric. This is great, great.
3, 2, 1.
So we just finished the crash test. Looks like we have a home run result. The cars even ended up exactly where we predicted. Post-crash, the detection worked perfectly. We deployed the airbags exactly as we intended to, as we wanted to, and indeed as we predicted to. And I just had a look at the injury values recorded by the dummies, and they look beautiful.
Where this really shows up is in things like safety. So let's take a look at the safety video. So on the one hand, you've got a car that is one of the safest cars in the world, a Volvo S60. Volvo is arguably the second safest car in the world.
And we think that the productivity gains are going to be astounding and shocking. However, those companies who do not embrace this rapidly enough are probably going to lose competitively. So I would be looking at this more, are they going on this offensively within their own organizations? Do they have proprietary data? And then in terms of solution sets, as you say, these are going to be longer term, right? So Tesla, autonomous taxi platforms, Elon thinks he will launch within the next year. We are thinking within the next 18 months to 2 years. But the difference between AI, which is really the next generation software, and blockchain technology, is that this was a dream in really the tech and telecom bubble. It's taken breakthroughs, cloud computing in 2006 with AWS, deep learning, the breakthrough in 2012, and it's taken cost declines. Costs were way too high until now. We're now ready for prime time for the use of artificial intelligence to increase productivity within organizations and increase profitability, and yes, create new products and services, which will take time. Traditional auto manufacturers are going to have trouble keeping up with the price declines that Tesla's technology is enabling. The secret to success in innovation is driving costs down. Technology follows learning curves. So figure out what that learning curve is. That's a big part of our research. And in the case of batteries, for every cumulative doubling in the number of units produced, battery costs decline by 28%. Elon is on a different battery cost curve decline. He is leveraged off the consumer electronics industry, those kinds of batteries that go into laptops and phones, and others. Automakers and auto analysts made fun of him in, I remember this very clearly, 2015, 16, 17. He absolutely chose the right technology, and I think others are rethinking it now. If they do not switch over to this kind of battery technology, they will not be able to catch up with Tesla in terms of price declines without losing money. Whereas Tesla's gross margins are probably going to continue moving up on balance, even as it is cutting prices, because its unit volumes, the economies of scale are going to be so significant. The hidden gems that will benefit perhaps the most from artificial intelligence are those companies with proprietary data sets. And we use Tesla all the time as a prime example of a lot of technology attributes. One of them is having the largest pools of real world driving data in the world. In fact, it has more of that kind of data orders of magnitude more of that kind of data than all of the other auto manufacturers and technology companies involved in transportation around the world. So we believe that it will be in the pole position for the autonomous taxi platform opportunity, which is a software as a service opportunity with massive margins. And it's also a winner take most opportunity.
A comment about two comments about, number one, how it's the safest car that's ever been built in the world. The safest car ever built in the world. And about a week ago, or 2 weeks ago, or 3 weeks ago, there was a man who took his wife and 2 children, 2 daughters, and drove it off a cliff 250 feet above the ground, and at 71 miles an hour. He was trying to commit suicide and murder at the same time. The car flies off the cliff and tumbles down to the bottom, and the roof on a Tesla is 30 or 40% stronger than any other roof, and the center of gravity is the middle of the car instead of the front of the car. And it rolls down to the bottom of the hill, and everyone's looking down, and then they lower people down, and they open the doors, and people just sitting there. They were fine. They were unscathed.
But unbelievable that they got out and were able to.
So unhurt. And so I told Elon he has to text about this and tell people that if they want to commit suicide, they should not be driving a Tesla. They should drive, a Bentley. Drive a Bentley. Drive it off the cliff, you'll die. Don't do it in a Tesla. So number one, the safest car ever been built. And of course, he tweeted about that. Number 2, Toyota. So Michael Barron, my son, and I went to visit Toyota in Japan a couple months ago. And we were meeting with an executive, and we had a translator with us because we don't speak Japanese. That guy did speak English. And so we started asking questions. And initially, it starts off, he's responding in answering my questions in English. And then all of a sudden, he switches to Japanese. And it happens every time there's a tougher question. He starts off with English and then goes to Japanese. And I finally say, listen, I can't have a conversation with you when you have a translator, and I'm listening to this translator. I got to talk to you in English. And so it's nothing. And then we walk out, and this whole strategy behind Toyota was they are negative about electric cars. Right. And what he wanted to do is he said, we want to have the lowest cost of mobility in the whole world. And so the result of that, rich people, they can plug in their cars. If you're a lot of places, there's not electricity, so you can't plug it in. So we're not into that. That was what we took away. So we walk out, and I said, Michael, I don't understand any strategy that they have here. This reminds me sort of Sony in the 1970s. They're just stuck in their ways. But I don't know. We never heard the strategy. And he said, Dad, I've never been more bullish about Tesla. And what do you know? The head of Toyota just retired yesterday or the day before, last week. He's the grandson of the founder. And he says, I'm too old for doing this. He was 65. I'm 79. So basically, he says, I'm too old for doing this. The bottom line is that the head of Volkswagen gets fired. The head of Ford, Mark Field, gets fired because they had bad strategies, bad people. And Mark Field came to visit me a few years ago. You couldn't have believed the negative things he told me about Elon Musk. All wrong. And just, he had a bad strategy, not a great executive. Okay, I shouldn't say that. All right, good guy.
Made in Texas. Made in Texas. First started out Tesla, I thought maybe we had optimistically a 10% chance of succeeding. And here we are today. Damn. We're really entering a new phase of Tesla's future and scaling to extreme size. As you can see from this building, it's not small. This is the machine that builds the machine. The factory is the product. Relative to production, prototypes are easy. Production is hard. And this building is the most advanced car factory that Earth has ever seen. And now let us deliver our first Tesla cars made in Texas.
Können Sie was im Bild?
Don't walk away, that's for sure. Amazing views here coming to us from Starbase, Texas.
Cheering to close the start again.
T-minus 15 seconds. 10, 9,
Starship vehicle tow twice the thrust of the Saturn V heading to space. Maximum aerodynamic pressure. The velocity increases. The density of the atmosphere is decreasing.
Max Q.
Lessening stress on the vehicle. The call out, Max Q now. Starship and Super Heavy and ignition of the Starship engines. Our view from Starship. And there's views of the Raptor engines on the second stage as we prepare for stage separation. Beginning the flip for stage separation.
Everyone here absolutely pumped to clear the pad and make it this far into the test flight, the first integrated flight of the booster and the Starship vehicle.
Live view there of our control center at Starbase, which we refer to as Star Command. As we said before, obviously we wanted to make it all the way through, but to get this far, honestly, is amazing.
If you're just joining us, Starship just experienced what we call a rapid unscheduled disassembly, or a RUD, during ascent. But now this was a development test. This is the first test flight of Starship, and the goal was to gather the data, and as we said, clear the pad and get ready to go again. So you never know exactly what's going to happen, but as we promised, excitement is guaranteed. And Starship gave us a rather spectacular end to what was truly an incredible test thus far.
As we mentioned at the start of today's program, any and all the data that we collected during the test is going to help us with further development of Starship, and it's going to improve the vehicle's reliability as SpaceX seeks to make life multiplanetary.